Jack and I were in the other part of the building with hundreds of people from all around the world who were looking for help with their immigration situations. And we looked at each other and with panicky tears in our eyes said to each other, "We have to close down, now." And we left and we didn't kiss the building goodbye. And here we are, not all of us, but quite a few of us back. And I just want to walk us through the Easter that we missed a year ago, all the summer worships that we missed in here a summer ago, all that time we wasted not complaining about NYU and how cold they kept it all summer. And then we missed Advent and Christmas and the light creeping up, the beautiful windows. And then we just kept thinking, we'll be back, we'll be back, we'll be back. And then we missed another Lent and another Good Friday and another Easter. And here we are on May 23rd, partially together. Thanks be to God. Just clap. What else can we do? And we welcome our friend who has been here. Some of you have met her on Zoom. She's been taking care of the building. And we say to the angels who kept saying, "When are you going to come back?" And the figures. And so here we are, and we thank the building for letting us come back. And we thank science for letting us come back. And we thank all the people who aren't going to be able to come back. We pray for all who are gone and won't be with us again. We pray for those still suffering with long-term COVID, especially our beloved Micah, who is with us in spirit today and who is going to be fine as soon as possible. And so we go to one more welcome. Before our postlude, I want to personally welcome Michael Conley, our musician of He was here with us at Judson for 9 years and has been music director in San Francisco at the Calvary Presbyterian Church for 6 years. And he just had to come back with his husband, Tony. So good to have you with us as well. And thank you to all of our musicians for welcoming each other and being such good friends. We will begin now the service, having moved back in ever so partially. And I ask you to join with me while seated in the land acknowledgement. Our physical space stands on the unceded land of the Lenape people. Judson Memorial Church acknowledges the Lenape community, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations, and we make this acknowledgement as part of our work to dismantle the ongoing legacies and lies of Christian supremacy, settler colonialism, and white supremacy. And now for our prelude.
Good morning, Judson. My name is Reverend Dr. Valerie H. Holly. I am the Associate Minister here. And certainly, again, as Donna said, welcome to those who are in our service in person and our folks that are joining us on Zoom. At this time, we will do our call to worship. And those of you who are able in the room here, if you wouldn't mind joining me by standing. And those online, you can follow along. So we're going to do it in several parts here. I will play the leader, and you will read the people section. The Spirit is here among us. The Spirit is here to strengthen us. The Spirit is here to move us. The Spirit is here. Can you feel the Spirit as we gather? May we be fed. We gather in the Spirit's arms to be nurtured as we worship. And if you can remain standing and join us in our opening hymn, O God, our help in ages past.
I'm Ravi Ragbear, reading from the first Jeremiah 29, chapter verses 4 to 9, from the New Revised Standard Version. Thus say the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles whom I have sent into exile, from Jerusalem to Babylon, from Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Syria, Ethiopia, Liberia, to Babylon, to the United States of America. Build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Take wives and have sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there and do not decrease, but seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your welfare.
From the book of Acts, chapter 2, verses 1 through 22, the Message version. When the feast of Pentecost came, they were all together in one place. Without warning, there was a sound like a strong wind, gale force. No one could tell where it came from. It filled the whole building. Then, like a wildfire, the Holy Spirit spread through their ranks, and they started speaking a number of different languages as the Spirit prompted them. There were many Jews staying in Jerusalem just then, devout pilgrims from all over the world. When they heard the sound, they came on the run. Then when they heard, one after another, their own mother tongues being spoken, they were blown away. They couldn't for the life of them figure out what was going on and kept saying, "Aren't these all Galileans? How come we're hearing them talk in our own various mother tongues? They're speaking our languages, describing God's mighty works." Their heads were spinning. They couldn't make head or tail of any of it. They talked back and forth, confused. What's going on here? Others joked they're drunk on cheap wine. That's when Peter stood up and, backed by the other 11, spoke out with bold urgency. "Fellow Jews, all of you who are visiting Jerusalem, listen carefully and get this story straight. These people aren't drunk, as some of you suspect. They haven't had time to get drunk. It's only 9 o'clock in the morning. This is what the prophet Joel announced would happen. In the last days, God says, I will pour out my Spirit on every kind of people. Your sons will prophesy, also your daughters. Your young men will see visions, your old men dream dreams. When the time comes, I'll pour out my Spirit on those who serve me, men and women both, and they'll prophesy. And whoever calls out for help to me, God, will be saved."
Can I hear that sound? Out of the ruins and rubble, out of the smoke, out of a night of struggle, can we see a ray of hope? One pale thin ray reaching for the day. We can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city. Not a city of angels, but we can build a city of men. We may not reach the ending, but we can start slowly but truly mending, brick by brick and heart by heart. Now, maybe now, we start learning how we can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can build a beautiful city. Not a city of angels, but we can build a city of men. a city of angels, but we can build a city, finally a city of men.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let us pray. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Fare well. Fare well. Defining terms, fare. Fare comes from the Old English. It means to go on a journey. How did you fare? It's better than how was your trip? You know, how did you fare? What were the surprises? What were the joys of the travel? How did you fare? Fare also means toll. 2 fares, please, for the bus. And that means that a farewell tells you about what the journey was like and how much it cost you. We'll get to well in a minute, but when you fare well, you talk about the journey and what it cost you. And I want to tell you that this journey cost me everything I had. And it returned 100-fold of what I gave it. Everything I had, and my investment returned 100 times what I gave. I've been trying to come up with metaphors, and I'll try 4 or 5 on you and see if they work. The first metaphor is I won the lottery, right? And some of it was taken away in taxes. But I was smart enough to get it year 1 through 15, so I didn't have to pay that much. Metaphor 2, it's like the airlines call you up and say that you have been chosen to travel first class the rest of your life, and you may not ever travel in coach again. Or you're a bus driver, and everybody that got on the bus that day said, thank you. Nobody threw up. Nobody beat anybody up. It was like being that kind of bus driver or that kind of first-class traveler or an investor who made a bet on a company that might or might not be going anywhere. And the thing went public every 3 years. And by the end of it, you were having to give the company away to people because there was so much wealth in it. Or it was like getting an apartment in Stuytown, but in a really high up building in Stuytown. So one window looked out at the East River and the other at the West River. That's what it was like. And yes, there were some resentments and difficulties, but they have all boiled down into a beautiful, silky broth that is so delicious I can't stand it. But forget the metaphors, because there's more to say. The truth is that the best part of this job, that was never really a job, but a calling, the best part was going out in public in what has to be the greatest city in the world, New York City, going out in the world and chatting people up, and you know how they inevitably say, well, what do you do? And you say, I am the senior minister of Judson Memorial Church on the south side of Washington Square Park. Right? Right? And get this, when you say that, they say, wow, we love you. You have done so much for this city for so long. And I, of course, took credit for all 100 years of it right on the spot. But that's what it was like. Nobody ever said things like, well, you know, I don't like church, or I'm not much on religion, or I don't know, what is that? I always thought that place was an art center. Nobody ever said anything like that. They got the whole of it. People I'd never met before. I could go anywhere. The Bronx, Queens, Harlem, Staten Island. I could go anywhere and introduce myself with that long title, and people would say, wow, thank you. Thank you for what we do. What you do, we love you. That's amazing, people. That's amazing. Don't blow it. So fair journey, the cost of doing business. Farewell, what is wellness? Wellness is the simultaneity of inner and outer peace. That's wellness. When they're both there. Some of you in this congregation are very, very, very upset about what's going on in immigration, or why all of our beautiful stained glass windows only represent white people, or what NYU did to us long ago. I do have to make sure one story gets out. When I first went to see the President Sexton, who was finishing up his term, I said, hi, I'm the new pastor. Thank you for seeing me at Judson Church. And he said slyly, how's the congregation doing? And I said, very well. And he said, oh, damn. Think about that. Some of you are very upset about all the social issues of gentrification and racism and immigration and NYU, who could be our best friend also. Think about that. Some of you are very upset that you have people from Texas in the congregation today. There, you can't get any help if there's a terrible snowstorm, but you certainly don't have to worry about having an abortion or transitioning. We're so glad that they're taking care of things. I'm just listing issues that seem important to me, but that what's really most important about the suffering that so many of you have about so many issues is that you be well enough to challenge them with sustainability and with guts and with strategy and with imagination, and that you not burn out, but instead get lit. That's the meaning of Pentecost, right? You just get lit. So I've talked a lot about spiritual nurture for public capacity over the years, and my source is the Jeremiah passage, which I want to go through with you very carefully now. Because what I really want to leave you with is not my great investment or your great investment. I don't care about that as much as I care about what Jeremiah says about the right way to be. And Jeremiah says, "Seek ye first the welfare of the city, and your own welfare will follow." And that's different than what we mean by work-life balance or being strong enough to carry on and do the kind of public ministry we dare to do here. Because we often trivialize wellness as inner peace. It's the simultaneity of inner and outer peace. And so a lot of us think linear about this wellness question. First, I'll get well, I'll jog, I'll exercise, I'll eat right, I'll get well, and then I'll do something fantastic for social action. And by that we mean something that won't exhaust me, or destroy me, or depress me, or ruin my family, or ruin my children, or ruin my marriage, or ruin my health. If you listen to Isaiah, it's a circle, people. It's a circle. Today you may be after inner peace, and tomorrow outer peace, and they feed each other. And Jeremiah suggests that we do plant gardens and live in them. Take wives, take husbands. We do live lives. We have no, it's really so funny, get a life, we'll say to a tired activist. Jeremiah says, get a life, and then spend it for the city, because when you spend it for the city, it will come back to you. It's a circle and a cycle. And then, of course, on Pentecost, how are you supposed to do that? You plug into the power of a holier spirit than your own, and the energy comes to have inner peace and outer peace simultaneously. Not just yours, because on our own we do not have the capacity to fare well. We just don't. But with an acceptance of the gift of the Holy Spirit, we have way more power than we need. And by the end of the day, that sustainable power is what Judson has had, will have, and needs. So the next time somebody says, hey, I didn't even know that place was a church, right? Because that is what they say. I didn't even know that place was a church because of all that social action. And you know those put-downs about how it's the Democratic Party at prayer and all that stuff. No, that is not what we are. We are a church that fares well and has inner and outer peace as two sides of the same coin, and is exactly what we do, have done, and will do. And that's why people love us, because we love them. You see the circle? So next time they say, I didn't know it was a church, just wink. Don't blink, wink. Say, we really are. We really are. We really are. Amen and farewell. Please remain standing. If you're able, many gifts, one spirit.
offertory. Okay, thank you, Donna, for the wonderful message. And at this time, we are going to do our offertory, where we can all take part and where we're able to give. You can text Judson. It's in your bulletin, and it may show up on the screen for our folk that's on Zoom. And you can also visit judson.org/give. And at this time, Michael Conley is going to play a wonderful piece for us while our offering is going on. Oh, I see that we have the bullet. Our folks are coming. Holly and Irene and Peggy. So we're going to let them get set up. And while they are doing this, and Michael's going to play, I want you to watch the screen, because there is a wonderful montage that Zach Mosley has put together.
Let us pray. We give you thanks, O God, that we are able to give. We give you thanks for all the good things we have tried to do together and all that we will try to do ongoing. Let us bend the arc towards justice, at least a little bit, if not a lot. And let our spiritual curiosity deepen. Amen and amen. We will now go to the United Church of Christ ritual for the ending of an authorized ministry.
So our church family is constantly changing. People come and go. Children grow up. People commit themselves to one another. Loved ones and friends among us come to the end of their lives. Individuals move into our community and into church's life. Others leave us, moving away to new places, new experiences, new opportunities. It's important and right that we recognize times of passage, of endings and beginnings. Today we share the time of farewell with Donna Schaper, who is leaving. We invite our continuing clergy to make personal statements and Donna to respond. Is that?
So here's a section here that invites me to say something. And I've been told, don't say something like a preacher and talk up here for 20 minutes. I was told to speak for, thank you for laughing, Matthew. I was told to speak for 2 minutes, and not even that. Personal statements. Donna, I don't know what is going to be considered a personal statement at this point, because everything I'm going to say is personal and from the heart. You welcomed me here 8 years ago. You did not only welcome me, but she realized that I came with some areas already completed. And so some of my first assignments were memorials and funeral. And I kept thinking, my God, why do I have 7 memorials that I'm doing here in this church? Yet each one was unique. 95-year-old dancer, the first woman dancer to bring in African-American dancers. And having that memorial here with 200 people that danced, the energy in this place was amazing. Or having a woman with severe rheumatoid who was an equestrian trainer, and then when her severity became worse, she became a sculptor. That was just amazing to me. So I just had, those memorials helped me grow. And your respect for Valerie, your walk through 2 of my degrees, I so appreciate it, as well as helping me through some of the madness of getting them, along with some people in this room that came here today to help me. I just want to thank you, Donna, for making room, faring well for me as another person that understands how this journey has been long. Those of you who understand, she's been in ministry over 40 years, and for a woman to be in ministry that long, you need to give her a hand, because it was not an easy feat. Not easy at all. Not easy. So thank you. Thank you, and your continued mentorship. Grace is going to boot me, so I better get out. But thank you so much.
I'm going to respond. I get to respond according to the program. And if you saw Valerie Hawley come onto your staff and had known that she'd been a senior minister for over 20 years in another congregation, would you assign her to anything easy?
So I'm not Reverend Micah Busey, because my hair responds to gravity. But this is something that he wrote for Donna. If you have spent enough time around Donna Schaper, you have no doubt seen that classic stack of papers that she carries to and fro. That storied mountain of scraps and flyers that might look like trash to some, but which clearly hold deep significance for her. If you have sat in enough meetings with Donna Schaper, you have no doubt watched her nod along to what is being said while she carefully tends to this pile of detritus, making sure that she reads each fragment and makes a note of what is to be done with it. I have been lucky to be one of those scraps, a scarred and scared seeker who had nearly given up and was about to discard myself when Donna found me somewhere in her stack of sacred trash, and infused meaning into my meandering, found holiness in the holes of my faith, held me close until she could read what I was saying, even before I knew myself, and then tossed me into the wind so my tattered wings could find their own wild rhythm. May we all find our ways to the scrap stacks of the Donnas of the world, especially when we can't see the value in our own scrappiness. And along the way, may we also learn to be Donnas. May we learn to collect the bits that might otherwise fall through the cracks, hold them close enough to hear the message buried between the lines, nod and nudge until meaning is made, and then gently let each bit go, assured that the Holy Spirit will do the rest of the work. With deep gratitude, love, Micah.
Good day, Judson family. I'm Reverend Charles Waterson, moderator of the United Church of Christ, the Metropolitan Association, and we bring you greetings. On behalf of, so you know her as pastor, you know her as activist, we know her as sister and colleague and friend and challenger. On behalf of the Metropolitan Association, the Board of Directors, and the entire Metropolitan Association and United Church of Christ, the New York Conference, on behalf of Reverend Dr. David Gajewski, we bid you farewell and celebration towards your rewiring. We have a personal message from her colleague and dear friend, Pastor Noel Vanek. Donna says of herself in her personal website that she learned to take church lightly. That's true for both the local church and the wider levels of church life. She likes congregations that are self-governing by passionate persons who care deeply about what God is doing publicly in the world, and conversely, aren't afraid to look at what God is doing in themselves. She isn't afraid of paradox, both and not either or. That's the Donna we've come to know and love. In the association, we complain that she doesn't often attend association meetings in one breath, and then in the next, bless her for generously playing Dolly Mama for clergy during Lent and helping congregations figure out how to use their building better as resources for ministry through the bricks and mortar program. And if you want to raise money for your congregation, Donna has been the person too in our association to contact for how to think about this coaching. Thank you, Coach. Now we have only a pretty good authority that when the Judson Church was searching for a new pastor 15 years ago and zeroed in on Donna, one of her reference warned them that she was a troublemaker and they had better be prepared. That's right. In her 15 years at Judson, she has led you all into what we call God's good trouble, helping start the new sanctuary here. That's a round of applause. Helping start the new sanctuary movement, bringing postgraduate seminary students in an intern for a year in actually turning over many parts of the church ministry to them. That will shake things up and get the church into trouble, good trouble. Donna has been at the lead of some social justice movements that have arisen in the church throughout the years within UCC, but often has encouraged others at Judson as well as UCC to take the lead on other issues. And then she becomes a follower and an encourager. That is a true sign of a leader. Would that all lead pastors and churches could do the same. She doesn't hog in the limelight and doesn't need to be a spokesperson for everyone and for every concern. Many of us in Metropolitan Association have come to know Donna best from her writings. In her still speaking devotion reflection, she has a way of looking at our current lives a bit differently than many commentators. She believes wholeheartedly in a God of surprises who always upsets our human apple carts, who always asks why not when we go around telling people that they can't do something. Why not? She's an advocate for a God who takes the human project lightly. Following Donna, I know that God frequently feels disappointed by us, but never has her heart been broken. She learned what we human beings are, fickle to the core sometimes, but also capable of making the most heart-wrenchingly beautiful art and gestures of inclusion, hospitality, and radical love. Donna God follows us with interest, but keeps some chips left up her sleeves. Donna is a radical Protestant who loves Pope Francis. She's the busiest church leader we know, but she glories in wasting time gardening and her cats. Because that's how she gets things done. Donna is a force, a spirit, a Dolly mama, a great heart, a seeker, a teacher. We, the association, will miss her terribly. We won't even know how or why we will miss her until one day we say, let's ask Donna to do this. Or, can Donna help us out? And then it will be by a long distance. Donna, don't go too far away. Come on, pick up the phone. Donna, don't put us on voicemail. That's not okay for us. Donna, we miss you already.
Thank you. Thank you, United Church of Christ, represented so well today. My spiritual home for all these years, and the one who took me in when the other people wouldn't. That's kind of nice, so thank you. Why would I not give back? And to Micah's beautiful statement, Katie, when she was about 8, noticed that I always had this large pile of papers following me around and was always messing with it, and she named it my preposterous. And even one night, I recall I was in the living room and she came into the kitchen holding this, stack of papers, and they're dripping all over the floor. I said, "What are you doing with my papers?" And she said, "I thought you might miss your preposterous." And I do miss my preposterous. So thank you, Micah. It's really interesting what you can find if you keep things around long enough to follow up on them. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody, and thank the UCC for this ritual of ending an authorized ministry. This is actually a sacred moment, and the UCC has guided us. And it began on January 25th, 2006, Judson Memorial Church called the Reverend Dr. Donna Schaper to serve as our senior minister. So, Donna, here is your part.
I thank Judson Memorial Church, its members, and its friends for the love, kindness, and support you have shown me these last 15 years. I ask forgiveness for the mistakes I have made, and there have been plenty. I am grateful for the ways my leadership has been accepted. As I leave, I carry with me all that I have learned here, and thank you, thank you, thank you.
And now the people. Please offer forgiveness and accept that you will leave to minister. We express our gratitude for your time among us. We ask your forgiveness
I forgive you and accept your gratitude, trusting that our time together and our parting are pleasing to God.
Do you, the members and friends of Judson Memorial Church, release Donna Schaper from the duties of senior minister? Do you offer your encouragement for her ministry as it now unfolds in new ways? Do you, Donna Schaper, release this local church from turning to you and depending on you?
I do with the help of God.
Do you offer your encouragement for the continued ministry here at Judson and for Judson's relationship with others who will come to serve?
I do with the help of God.
May we all stand. It is on the official behalf of the Metropolitan Association, the New York Conference, and the United Church of Christ. I witness to the words spoken, words of thankfulness, forgiveness, and release. The member churches of our association and the New York Conference hold each of you in prayer. We pledge our support in the transition signified in the service. Now, before you sit, let us all give a round of applause to your senior minister on a job well done. You may be seated.
We're going to go now to our closing hymn, and don't be confused by the program. That's for the Zoom people. And so we're going to have our last hymn. I'll do a benediction, and then we will remain seated for the postlude. Please rise as you're able.
So at this time, Donna had mentioned the benediction, yet the actual formal benediction will be later on during the reception. So right now, we're going to go into a section of time where Michael Conley is going to play the pulse mood while we stay here. And those on the Zoom, you may be able to do some talking with yourselves as we will here, because at 12:30 sharp, we will start the reception. So let us, those that are here in the space, we have the opportunity to listen to Michael Conley with the postlude. He's doing World Away Waltz by Florence Beatrice Price. Michael Conley, y'all. Michael Conley. Okay, we have some minutes to socialize with each other, and then we'll be right back here at 12:30 for the rest of the reception, which is a program that you want to be able to stay for. All right? Thank you so much.
Okay, not yet? Yes, here we go. Okay, everyone, we're going to be starting in a minute, so find your seats again. All right, Grace? What about Dominique? Okay. But, well, I can... You should unwrap it. We should unwrap it now, I would think. I'm coming. Okay, 2 more minutes. So pretty soon, we'll get everybody to sit down and we will start our reception. So, we're waiting till Grace says it's time to start. So I guess I get to say something just to keep you busy. Grace, tell me when. You should know that you can't hear me. Betty? Closer to the mic. Okay, that's useful to know. You should know that Grace Goodwin is planned all this and got us all together. And thank you, Grace. Yes. Right. And one of the first things that Donna said when she arrived, I also was on the search committee back in the day. One of the first things she said when our administrator quit suddenly and a couple people in the congregation picked up, including Irene, including Bethine, and including somebody else. Donna said, this congregation has a deep bench, and that is so true. There are so many people who do so much work. So Grace is one, Holly, who's head of the transition committee, is another, so here we go. So I think I should start now, yes. So welcome back, everybody. And for those of you on Zoom, welcome also. And we are now going to have many people talk very briefly about how important and how good Donna Schaper has been in our mission of Judson Church. And the very first one is Dominique Atchison. Dominique, yes, does it say your title? Does people have this nice piece of paper? Dominique is now Mayor de Blasio's liaison with the faith community. But we know her because she was one of the first community ministers. And so we are proud of her now, but proud of her then too, and proud of her in the future. So Dominique, can you please come up and...
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm gonna take this off so I can breathe. So I am raised in the Black Baptist tradition, but I was ordained here. This is a joke that I tell when I preach, actually. So I could take a long time, but I'm not going to. So I'm gonna take on two hats today as the representative of Mayor de Blasio, but also as somebody who kind of grew up in ministry here. Just trying to decide which one I wanted to do first. I'm gonna do the de Blasio side second and do me first. So I came here in 15 years ago. In 2016, a friend of mine who was in seminary with me was, I think, being recruited to be here as an intern, but was moving away, and said, why don't you guys look at my friend Dominique, who at that time was struggling in ministry, trying to figure out what I was gonna do next, which is a theme in my life. But anyway, so I came here and interviewed to be an intern and ended up being a part of the inaugural group of community ministers here. And I ended up being ordained here in 2010. I cannot believe that was 11 years ago. But I just wanted to say this about you, Donna. There is no me anywhere post 2006 without you. That's just a reality. You know, there have been ups and downs. But there's something about you that you're able to see me, and sometimes it's hard for people to see me. And sometimes it's hard for people to see lots of kinds of people, but somehow you have the ability to see lots of kinds of people. And I was thinking about that pile of paper, and I've become that. I've become you. And I walk around with piles of stuff, and I'm like, I'm Donna now. But I realized how revolutionary, I always knew, but how revolutionary your ministry is and how scary it might be to someone. And that I took on the mantle of like actually wanting to be like you and how scary that might be for some people. But I appreciate the mentorship. I'm not somebody who's easy to mentor, but you actually are one of the very short list of people who's actually mentored me, so I really appreciate it. And without your mentorship, I'd probably be not ordained in the back of a church somewhere, like, that's that girl that tried to get ordained. But here I am, so thanks be to God for your work in ministry. So back to official capacity. So I have a letter from the mayor that is not here, but we're gonna send it to you. It's my fault that it didn't come in person, but it will get to you. But it says, Dear Reverend Dr. Schaper, It's a great pleasure to join with Judson Memorial Church in congratulating you and your retirement after 15 years of devoted leadership. New York's faith leaders are an important part of the fabric that unites the 5 boroughs. And as senior pastor of Judson Memorial Church, you have built a strong foundation for fellowship and growth in Manhattan. Under your leadership and spiritual guidance, this congregation has grown tremendously and provided a bedrock of support for New Yorkers of all faiths through its wide array of initiatives, including Bricks and Mortals, the New Sanctuary Coalition, internship programs, and so many others. As one of the first women to be ordained in the United Church of Christ, you have been an inspiration for all and blazed a path for so many to follow in your footsteps. For your efforts to support our city through the COVID-19 pandemic, to your service as a valued member of my Clergy Advisory Council, your dedication to uplifting your community and strengthening the 5 boroughs has been unwavering. As you reflect on your accomplishments and the ways you have enriched the lives of those around you, I applaud your commitment to your parishioners and for helping to pave the way to a brighter future for our city. On behalf of all New Yorkers, I offer my best wishes for a happy and healthy retirement, but rewiring, we'll say also. Sincerely, Bill de Blasio, Mayor.
So thank you, Dominique. And for those of you who don't remember, she not only preached sermons here, she sang sermons here. It was lovely, Dominique. So now I am happy to introduce the President of Manhattan, the Manhattan Borough President, my friend, Gail Brewer.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. I don't believe in retirement, but I am honored to be here anyway. So what this says, I think before I even say this is, I think you know this amazing reverend perhaps even longer than I do, but my friend Anna Lou Pickett, who has passed, was the one many years ago who worked on making sure that abortions were available, and this was the first place when that took place with this kind of support from Judson. I'll never forget. Judson meant everything to her, and she meant everything to me. So what this says, and I think you know all of this because there really isn't anybody like this amazing woman. So since 2005, Reverend Schaper has had an incredible impact on the lives of New Yorkers, way beyond Judson Memorial Church. I put that in, because she has humility, she has faith, and she has a serious commitment to social justice, unlike others who do not, they just pretend. She has helped found Bricks and Mortals, a really important organization, increasing the role the houses of worship play in the flourishing of whole communities and its neighborhood commons accessible by all. I can't tell you from my role as borough president how helpful this organization has been. Shaped by her philosophy that a sacred site belongs to its community, she has welcomed nonprofits, local collectives, and other congregations to use the church's spaces. And we don't forget, there's also a pandemic. We don't forget number 45. And when number 45 was in office, this amazing space housed individuals who were dealing with horrible immigration. And we obviously know the organization, but there was one gentleman from Gambia who had been detained, a wife and 5 children here. And I was standing downstairs, which, thanks to really Judson, he was released. And there we were with the folks from the group, him meeting his wife and 5 kids, and he had been detained for a very long time. There are just so many ways that this space and this reverend has been a leader that nobody will be able to make a list. I really appreciate her role as a member of the Borough President's Religious Facilities Task Force, where she advocated for the future of our neighborhoods, as I described above, contributing to the efforts to safeguard the city's houses of worship from acquisition and development, and at the same time, making sure their mission continues. That's a very challenging policy. As the face of Judson Memorial Church, she has fulfilled her spiritual mission to nurture the souls of those around her, and I know she will continue to do so as she embarks on her next chapter. Like I said, she's not retiring. So I, Gail Brewer, as your borough president, do hereby commend Reverend Donna Schaper for her contributions to our beloved New York City, and I proclaim Sunday, May 23rd, 2021, Reverend Donna Schaper Appreciation Day in the borough of Manhattan.
So if you have the program next on the list is Brad Homan, but I don't see him here, so Brad's not here. But then we have a really special treat, which is Corey Johnson. Corey, of course, is our city council person if you live in that direction, but he is also the head of the City Council of New York City. So Corey, please come up, and I'm so happy to see you.
It is so nice to hug Keen. It's been so long to be able to hug people. Thank you, Keen. I did not come today just for the chocolate chip cookies. I came because today is a really important and special day, and I'm always honored to be at Judson Memorial Church. As you all know, this incredibly important place has, for over 130 years, served as a bastion for compassion and inclusion and love in Greenwich Village and for our entire city. And it takes a really, really, really kind of special person to lead an institution with a storied history like Judson. But Donna is that kind of special person. And in James 1:22, James writes, "Prove yourselves doers of the word and not merely hearers who delude themselves." And Donna is a doer of words each and every day in our city. I see my friend Ravi is here. I can even see him with that mask on. And the New Sanctuary Coalition has served as a moral and legal leader in the fight for the treatment of our fellow human beings. As you heard from one of my role models, Gail Brewer, who I love so much, Bricks and Mortals supports churches all across New York City in order to help them help others. And Donna is a writer and a teacher and a leader in every single sense of the word. We need more Donnas in New York City. And I am truly inspired by her dedication and her passion for helping others. My mom, who I speak to every single day, I spoke to her about an hour ago. She lives in Salem, Massachusetts. We talk every morning and every night. My mom works at a homeless shelter. My mom is a deeply, deeply really short, strong Irish Catholic woman, and she's dedicated her life to helping poor people. She does street outreach to the homeless folks who live in Salem, Massachusetts, and has done that for the last 20 years. And she taught me a motto when I was a little boy, and this motto reminds me of Donna. And I try to think of this motto every single day when I get up to do my work. And the motto that my mom taught me is, she always said, "Corey, we need to do the most good for the people who need it the most." And that is Donna. Donna does that work every single day, So I wanted to be here today on a beautiful, hot, humid day in New York City to celebrate her, to honor her, and to echo the words of Gail Brewer that she is not retiring. She is gonna do something new and great. So thank you all for having me, and thank you, Donna, for everything you've done.
And Donna herself says she is not retiring, she is rewiring. And so everybody agrees that this is not retirement at all. Already, both of our political leaders who've just spoken spoke about the new Sanctuary Coalition, which was a tiny little seed in Donna's brain 15 years ago, and now is a huge and wonderful organization that we are very proud of. And therefore I call Reverend Stephen Phelps, who is the co-chair of the board, to tell us something. Thanks.
The title of chairmanship of the board has moved around a lot. I was formerly co-chair. Reverend Kaji Dosa has the title, and she's on leave, and Rabbi Joshua Stanton has that acting role right now. So the name moves around a bit, but there are many of us who work with Donna, and formerly we were meeting live, and now we Zoom together, as you well know. Donna, of the many qualities and skills and gifts and commitments that could be spoken of here today, I want to focus on one, to reflect on your commitment to the immigrant at need, your commitment to the need of new sanctuary in this city for them. That word immigrant comes from a Latin word, migratus, which meant one changing abode. But migratus itself comes from a much more ancient root, which could be pronounced mai, M-E-I. And I want to use mai as a way into some ways that we might turn our ears and our hearts to think about your work. Mai, the ancient root, gave rise to this word migrant, as you know. In all the earth, mai means to change. That's what it meant in ancient times, to change, mai. So the migrant is someone who has changed his or her abode, and therefore we see in all human capacity this ability to change, this desire to change, to migrate from one way of being to another, to migrate from one home to another, to migrate from one hope to another. We know you, Donna, as a great mother of migrations of all kinds. Of course you would make Judson home to a new sanctuary for those who must be on the move. Mai also gives rise to the word molt and mutate. A migrant is something like a bird, molting. In molting, a bird can't fly or flee and needs protection. Well, this we have seen here. You have extended the wing of protection over countless migrants here in this city, as well as a wing of protection over the changes that are inward, that happen within people in spiritual community. You have extended this wing over so very many, a molting multitude, we could say. Mai is also the root of the word amiss. Amiss, in the breach. That is, things that have changed or need to change. What Mai stands for, your commitment to justice gone missing Because my is in there. We've got to change, or something has changed in the wrong way. So your commitment to right what is amiss, your commitment in hope that all people, the powerful or the oppressed, might be changed in the direction of love and justice, so that no one go missing on the streets of this city. Finally, my, MEI, is the root of the words common, commune, community, communicate, and for your city leaders, municipal. That seems strange. What these have in common is the word to be held together. The together part is C-O-M. We all know tons of words that begin C-O-M that mean together. But the mun part, the my part in that ancient word refers to a change. Now this is the least obvious of the several words that I'm riffing on today, because what is it that has to be changed when we're held together? The answer has come out of your ministry and your work, one way to think about it, which is that we are changed from being so terribly apart to being willing to be held in common, to be understanding what it is to be in community, to feel anew, to be changed by a new communication as comes through the preaching of the word here, or in all the myriad ways that you have communicated yourself and your commitments to this city, to these people. Your wide work demonstrates how great a change is afoot when community forms. You've helped us to feel why and to know how that we can change from this terrible, desperately split apart nation and people that is America. In Deuteronomy 26, every reader is encouraged to say, "A wandering migrant was my ancestor, who went down into a narrow land and lived there among aliens, few in number, but there became great." Donna, my word. Oh, Donna, thank you for showing us a way to change and become great. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things that Judson has had to do, and Donna has done very well, is work with the law. And we have a wonderful lawyer, Jason Lebate, who has worked with Judson, who wanted to be here but couldn't, and sent a statement. But luckily, Judson has another New York lawyer who is even better than Lebate, because he's a member of the church. And so I now call on, yes, good, yes, Bob Kraft to read the statement from Lebate, and thank you for belonging to us.
I thought Steve was going to say that Donna was molting. This submission is from Jason Lebate, and as you will hear, and you have heard, Jason is a lawyer. Grace Goodman, who is a lawyer, is the one who asked me to read it, not only because I'm a lawyer, but, and that's the reason I wrote my notes on a yellow legal pad. By coincidence, Jason's uncle is a partner of mine at Holland and Knight and worked with us on City Ballet intellectual property matters quite frequently. So this is for Jason and by Jason, and it is entitled "For Donna in Her Rewirement." Of course, Donna is going away to rewire. It's what prophets do. Muhammad went to the cave of Hira, Moses climbed Mount Sinai, and Buddha refuged under the tree. And so Donna is going to the North Fork. I met Donna in April of 2018 at the Rooftops Conference in Manhattan on a not-for-profit real estate convention. I presented on the great need and opportunity for faith-based organizations to get together with their communities and vice versa. Donna came up to me after the presentation and said something like, "You gave us a lot to think about. We should talk more." As fate would have it, Donna and I would re-meet 3 months later at the New York State Council of Churches 2-day retreat named "The Church as the Catalyst for Community Renewal and Urban-Rural Dialogue" in Johnstown, New York. It's a very different place than and 200 miles from Manhattan. I was a presenter, and of course, Donna was the keynote. Johnstown was the first time Donna and I were able to talk at length. Prior to her keynote, I crashed Donna's dinner date with a former parishioner and his partner who had moved upstate. Donna could not have been more gracious. She navigated the old relationship and the new face with warmth and poise. She was, as always, totally present and totally above it, sharing mundane earthly delights while skiing philosophical mountains. Donna also had the generosity to pick up the check. Thank you again, Donna. I still owe you a glass of wine and some tapas to return the favor. Maybe we'll grab some in North Fork. And from that afternoon on a beautiful veranda at a chain hotel in Johnstown, my life has been intertwined with Donna. Donna has a way of bringing you in and putting you to work. 3 months later, Donna engaged me to work with Judson leadership to create a secular affiliate that serves as the vehicle and creates the legal space to bring Judson and the community closer together to achieve common goals. With its own board and tax exemption, Friends of Judson now works to support and supplement the social justice and artistic work at Judson and to preserve the physical space that houses it. Around the same time, Donna recruited me into Bricks and Mortals, a grassroots organization that helps congregations deal with their property. Almost immediately, I was working with Donna and architect Taylor Aiken to draft grant proposals to study the scope of deterioration of faith-owned real estate in the city. Well, the grant makers thought that perhaps a full-time staff person was necessary before some big study that would sit on a shelf. And through the magic of Donna, Bricks and Mortals received its first grant. Bricks and Mortals now has an executive director, a project manager, a board, and is on the cusp of being incorporating and receiving its own 501c3. I have known Donna for just over 3 years, and she has changed my life so much, but that is just what Donna does. When Donna is involved, things happen and lives change. I'd be lying if I said I am not conflicted by Donna's rewirement. I have seen so much good achieved in the last 3 years with Donna's engagement. But I get it. Donna has kept the water running and the pipes from leaking for years. It's someone else's turn to be the plumber. It's time for Donna to return to the mountaintop and make it rain. Thank you for everything, Donna, for who you are and what you do. When you return, we'll be here, and hopefully when you return to New York, sowing the fertile ground you've left, you will benefit from the new rain.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Jason, and thank you, Donna, for keeping it green for us with all the wonderful stuff you've done. And now I see that Brad Homan, our state senator, who was listed a little bit earlier, is now here. And so I am happy to call up Brad. You ready, Brad? Yes. Here we go. He is the state senator from where we are now, but you should know, I'm sure you've noticed that the state senate of New York State has done many, many great things in the last 10 years. And if you didn't know why,
Thank you so much, Keen. It's good to see everyone. You know, Keen, I should be pointing my finger back at you for all you do for our community and this amazing congregation, this historic congregation, this congregation that has always been out front on social justice issues and really is a North Star for so many of us who serve in public life, elected officials, community board members, block association members, social justice warriors. So thank you for your service. And I see Speaker Johnson here, and he's one of those social justice warriors too. So good to see you, Corey. I just am here really as a fan of the Reverend. I remember when I first met her, she summoned me to her office, and it was filled with so many books. I didn't realize she had written probably half of those books. But she's written more books than most people read, I would venture. But I'm really here on behalf of the New York State Senate to issue an official proclamation because of Donna's leadership in our community. Particularly, I want to say around the issue of immigrants, new Americans, those who have felt prosecuted and end up being persecuted by our federal government. I was very proud to carry legislation inspired here, and we actually began the project here called the New York State Protect Our Courts Act. And we had the first launch of that legislation here in this very room where we didn't know if we could get it passed. It was a bill that would prevent those who are undocumented, who are going to and from court, from being arrested by ICE. And you know what? Thanks to the efforts of everyone here and the sanctuary movement, we passed that bill last year. So I want to thank Donna for her role, and of course in trying to bring Jean home, and fighting for the sanctuary movement was really born out of this congregation. And I have the honor of presenting, I'm not going to read the whole proclamation. This is one of the Wizard of Oz parts of our job. But I do want to say that I, New York State Senator Brad Hoylman, recognize that in Reverend Dr. Donna Schaper, we have an individual truly worthy of our highest esteem and gratitude. And be it further resolved that we declare today, May 23rd, Reverend Dr. Donna Schaper Day in the New York State 27th District.
Next on the agenda is Sherry Kroon, but I don't see Sherry here yet. She's in traffic, so she will be here. You should know that Sherry Kroon was a community minister and now is the pastor of a church called Plainview Church way out in Long Island. So she was preaching today, but she wanted to get here because she honors Donna and she belongs to us in some ways. So the next set of people, Donna said, people say, is it really a church? And of course I say yes. And then they say, what kind of church? And they don't mean social justice, they don't mean arts, they want to know what we're affiliated with. And so luckily we are affiliated with the congregational people and the Baptist people, especially the UCC and the ABC, and also the Alliance of Baptists. So we have now a video, first from the, let me get it right, first from Reverend Sharonal Edney Stilley, Associate Conference Minister of New York State Conference of the United Church of Christ. So do we have the video, Andre?
Greetings. My name is Reverend Sharonal Edney Stilley, and I currently serve as the Associate Conference Minister for Congregational Vitality in the New York Conference, United Church of Christ. That's a lot. It is my honor and my privilege to be able to bring greetings to you, Reverend Donna, on behalf of the entire conference. Reverend David Gajewski, Reverend Dr. Marsha Williams, Reverend Dr. Marjorie Pernine, Reverend Gary Ferner, and Reverend Ryan Henderson. Additionally, Sue Frost, Suli Gajewski, David Lucido, and Lisa Delgado. We are all so grateful for you. Your ministry, your life, the stories that you tell, and the way that you are able to weave so many parts of existence together and to make it spiritual have just touched us in ways that you will never fully grasp, because we are still learning. We are still learning from you. And it's not just your 38 books. It's not just your 15 years at Judson. It's not just the work of bricks and mortals, but it is who you are. I continue to be sort of amazed at the way that your mind sees things. You are such a visionary, and we are so grateful to have been blessed by your ministry. We're sorry we couldn't be there in person. Of course, due to COVID guidelines with the conference, we weren't allowed to travel, but I know it is one great party that continues to happen multiple ways and over multiple days. One of the things that I love, I saw on a flyer, it said sweatpants optional. Well, I tell you what, isn't that life for all of us right now, that sweatpants are optional? And I think that the way that you weave faith together, right? It says that faith is necessary, but sweatpants are optional, which means that we have to have faith, but the way that we show up is whatever way we choose to show up, and God will honor that. And that's just a little bit of what I get learning from you. And so we are so grateful that we have you. We're grateful that we're not losing you either, because this is not a retirement. This is a rewirement, if I'm understanding that correctly. I love that word, because we can all make it mean whatever we want it to mean. And for me, I take the challenge as rewiring, meaning that, you know, even when you move on from a particular assignment, whether it be a job, whether it be a purpose where you were somewhere, when you move on, you are not retiring, but rewiring. Means the original stuff is all still there, right? We're just figuring out how to piece it back together in order to move forward. And so I am so grateful that that you're not going anywhere, but that you will still be a part of our family and still be someone that we can continue to learn from. If anybody is familiar with chaos theory in mathematics, basically chaos theory says, well, there's chaos. Right now, I know that it feels like our society and everything going on in our world is its own example of chaos theory. But out of chaos theory also comes something called the butterfly effect. And in the butterfly effect, it means that in the midst of all that chaos, right? In the midst of all the things that are going wrong and oodles banoodles, if you will, that there is something small that can happen, a small drop in a pond, a ripple in a river, and it is something that creates bigger and bigger and bigger changes in the grand scheme of things, that it started from just something tiny, and now it's changed the world. And Donna, you are an example of the butterfly effect right here in chaos theory. And so thank you immeasurably for the ways in which you continue to make little changes inside of a chaotic world that will continue to grow far beyond what any of us could ever know or realize. But that's who you are. That's who God made you to be. It's who God made us all to be. And you're just showing us by example that it can be done. So I appreciate all that you all have done for Donna. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of this celebration, even if virtually. Save me cake. You know, I would love that. And also, Donna, please know that we are sending you some other things directly to you, just so that you have some little trinkets from the conference. So whenever you look at them, you know that you have our love and support. I lastly also bring you greetings from Reverend Dr. Yvonne Delk, who sends her love and sends her great wishes and says that you all have to connect sometime so that you all can talk about rewiring together. So blessings, and have a great time and enjoy the celebration. Bye.
Thank you. And now another video, this one from the Baptists. This is from Dr. Cheryl Dudley, who is the head of the Metropolitan Baptists of New York City. So here we go, Cheryl.
Hey Donna, I'm so sorry I'm not able to be there with you in person. I'm on a road trip to see my mother, and so the window of time that presented itself is right now. But it's my joy to be able to share a little bit with you in this video. Thank you for being exactly who you are all the time. I've come to depend on it. Your unique way of looking and living and moving through the world, your wisdom, your genius, your vision, your call to all of us to faithfulness, to mission. You don't always use those words, but that's exactly what you're doing. You have the heart of a prophet and a pastor. One of my clearest memories of you is when you showed up for a reception that was thrown when I became executive minister, a group of women in ministry. I recall that you had a backpack on, and you came into the tower of Riverside Church. You took the pack off, you put it on the table, and you sat down. And I saw you there as a sage, and particularly when you began sharing from the depths of your heart, very tenderly, very poignantly, as the salt of the earth. You were an encouragement to not only myself, but many of the women who were also there together. Thank you for being there. And thank you for inviting me to meet with the community ministries group a few years ago. You mentioned at that meeting the word transcendence, when I saw transcendence happening. And as I thought about that question through the years, I've often experienced transcendence when you've been in the room. You have somehow been able to help transport us to those places where we need to go. We don't always want to hear it, but it's something that we do need to hear and to recognize. One of my regrets is that we never had the opportunity to walk a labyrinth together. We're both labyrinthistas. But you know what? We're still alive. We're still journeying. We're still in ministry. So we are likely to walk a labyrinth on the ground or on the floor together, as well as continuing in the labyrinth called our lives in faith. God bless you and keep you. I cherish your friendship, and I love you a lot.
And now something a little different. Micah Busey cannot be with us today, but we all know Micah's talents, and he videoed something for us now. And part of it will be when he says we're supposed to stand up and sing a chorus. So when that happens in the video, we all should stand up and sing. So now we have the video from Micah Busey, who is the associate pastor of Judson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Micah, and I have the honor of serving as one of Judson's ministers. And I so wish I could be with all of you this morning to celebrate the jaw-dropping Judson legacy of the one and only Reverend Dr. Donna Schaper, or as I like to call her, D-Scops. When I was asked to share a little about my experience working with D-Scops, I realized that 6 years ago, at the celebration of Donna's 40th ordination anniversary, I composed and presented a little ditty, a little song that still says all I think I need to say about how I feel about this amazing woman's effect on my life. So, since I can't be with you with my little ukulele today, I figured I'd share a recording of that performance with all of you. So if you know the chorus, feel free to sing along, and you might learn the chorus as you're watching, so feel free to start singing along. And D-Scops, thank you, thank you, thank you for teaching me the wonders of spaghetti ministry. All right, so a little personal story. 5 years ago, after I had participated in my first Judson worship service and had had a very brief but very, very loud encounter with the Judson sound system, Donna emailed her own report card evaluation to the staff, and at the very bottom of the report was the sentence, "Micah speaking into the microphone will be a continual concern." But here I am, 5 years later. I took that as a challenge, as one should take most things Donna says. And here I am, celebrating a woman who has nearly literally given me my own wings, clipped them a little bit more than once, and continues to do all the things they sing about in mid-career Bette Midler ballads. And I can see from all of your faces that Donna does that for so many people. So I decided to find out the recipe. I decided to figure out the science of how she does it, the science of how Donna creates what I call a culture of invitation that she so effortlessly promotes. How does she maintain such a balance of attachment and non-attachment? How does she help all of us to do the same? Now, I find that we're going to figure this all out as we hear the toast that I'm kicking off, but for myself, I'm going to go back to my first ever meeting with her a little over 5 years ago at a little vegan restaurant called Red Bamboo on West 4th Street, where I realized she had revealed a secret to me. And it has a food metaphor, so it will curb that hunger as well. So without us even knowing one another, I sat in front of her. I was so nervous, as I assume many people are when they first meet Donna for one of those meetings. So picture it. A New York City vegan restaurant. A nervous, verbose, spiky-haired pre-seminarian with an idea. And a wise, stylish, humbly attractive woman holding a stack of random pieces of cardboard and newsprint. It's a classic meet-cute New York love story. Donna's sitting quietly across from me, shuffling bits of paper, mail, and such. Donna lets me blather on quite nervously. Donna doesn't interrupt that much. Donna barely looks up from her calendar. She just nods and sips her jasmine tea. Then when she can't take my ramblings anymore, this is what she calmly says to me. Well, basically, Micah. I take an idea, I throw it in a pot, I stir it real good, and then when it's hot, I take the idea, I throw it at the wall, I pray that it sticks. And that's what I call spaghetti ministry. Spaghetti ministry, spaghetti ministry, spaghetti ministry, spaghetti ministry, spaghetti ministry, spaghetti ministry, spaghetti ministry. Oh, won't you sing with me? Spaghetti ministry, 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 spaghetti ministry. Beautiful. Okay, verse 2. Donna doesn't know where we will find the cash, but I get a job that very day. True story. Donna doesn't know if I will burn or crash. The jury's still out. But Donna doesn't mind much either way. Donna's schooling might seem random, rushed, and strange. She's a one-woman seminary. Good ideas just grow, and bad ideas just change. So keep perfecting Donna's recipe and sing with me. Spaghetti ministry, 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 spaghetti ministry. Okay. Go take an idea and throw it in a pot and stir it real good. And then when it's hot, go take the idea and throw it at the wall and pray that it sticks. And that's what you call spaghetti ministry. Do it! Spaghetti ministry, 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 spaghetti ministry. Donna! That's the end! Go on! D-stops!
So we miss him. Sherry's not here yet, right? Okay. So, to bring it all back home, we can't end without mentioning, highlighting the community minister program. That is something that Donna brought to Judson, and I remember when we first interviewed her and she suggested this, and we thought, well, maybe we could try it with maybe 1 or 2. And what happened is we've had over 100 community ministers in the last 15 years. And when people complained, yes, that included, of course, Micah and Michael Ellick and many others, Valerie, Sherry, Dominique, many, many others. So we said, the congregation said, wait a minute, Donna, you said 1 or 2. We said, maybe, okay. How come there's so many? And she said, well, you know, the Holy Spirit doesn't know how to count. And I thought, all right, we got it. So one of them was Michael Ellick, who became the associate pastor here. And then 5 years ago, a little 6 years ago, before Micah came, Michael Ellick left to go to Oregon, and now he is the director of public engagement for ecumenical ministries of the entire state of Oregon. And Michael Ellick wanted to be here today, but couldn't, so he too sent a video. So Michael Ellick is in this video.
Hi, Donna and everyone. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but Grace asked me to say that I am Reverend Michael Ellick. I used to be the minister, one of the ministers at Judson, working with Donna, and that I'm was part of the first 2 classes of the community minister program, which shaped me and impacted me a great deal. I'm supposed to talk about Donna, and in all the years I worked there, I was always promised there would be like a roast for Donna or some kind of public ribbing ceremony. It never happened. I understand this isn't the place to, but I'm supposed to share some of my big takeaway lessons, and there's a lot. So many stories I could share. I thought for a second I was going to share about the time that Donna told me how to keep bribe money for the police. She said this as there was a fire alarm and people were yelling everywhere, and she was calmly sipping a martini. That's one lesson. Another was she showed me how to intimidate my fellow UCC ministers at a late night synod cabal meeting when she stripped off all her clothes in front of them nonchalantly and went for a lap in this hotel pool. Kind of a power play lesson. Very impressive. Showed how confident she was. But as I sit here and my friend is stepping down at Judson on the other side of the country, what rises to the top in my mind is this scrap of paper that Donna gave me from her basket once. And it was after she'd hired me to be her assistant minister, but before I was actually ordained to do the job. I had like 4 or 5 months of doing it in sin. And but the paper had this quote on it from Henry Nouwen. And this is the quote. It said, "The way of the Christian leader is not the way of upward mobility in which our world has invested so much, but the way of downward mobility, ending on the cross." That slip of paper hung on my office bulletin board at Judson my entire time there. I remember looking at it the day I gave my first sermon. I remember it on the day I was ordained, the day I was first arrested for doing something social justice-y. And I remember looking at it the day that I got married there in the meeting room. And later on, I read it as I packed up my things to leave the church. And I have carried it with me as a kind of touchstone ever since. It's hung in every office I've had since then. And of course, there are deep mysteries in a statement like this. And deep mysteries do not offer up their secrets easily. But Donna, as you transition away from this place where we shared so much together, I offer those secrets back to you, those deep mysteries. And I pray that the Spirit continually speaks to you through them. And I thank you for them, and I thank you for all the good things in my life that I received when you took a chance on me 13 years ago. I'll see you on the way back down. Take care, Donna.
And now I get to speak for Judson itself. Sherry is here. Oh, good. Sherry, hooray. Thank you, Grace. So Donna has done many, many good things here. And there are many good community ministers who've gone on, and I already mentioned Sherry. Sherry is one of them, but Sherry Kroon, Reverend Sherry Kroon, pastor of Plainview Church, is able to now say one more wonderful thing that Donna has done. Go ahead, Sherry.
Good afternoon. There's a lot of traffic between Long Island and here. I'm so glad to be with you. I'm so glad to be with you, Donna. Just a few words. In the spring, when COVID was just raging, Donna reached out to me and she said, you know, I think I'm going to start this group of women talking about bodies, talking about the refrigerated trucks and how many people have passed and what do we do about this? And I said, I would love to be a part of that conversation. And so we were on Zoom, of course, and there were clergy people, and there was a funeral director, and there were lay people, and there was the president of Union Seminary, and there was a president of Auburn, and just community ministers from here at Judson, and so many women. You know, when you see the grid on your screen, how sometimes it kind of takes your breath away, and that was a moment where Donna knew that people needed to talk about all the people that were dying and needed to talk and recognize the fact that there were refrigerated trucks full of bodies, and needed to talk about the fact that on Hart Island there were just 25, 75 people, 100 people every day who were being buried without any recognition. And so she did what she does so beautifully, and that was just to set a space, invite the conversation, and trust it. So one of the things that I've learned from Donna is that sometimes you create something that was not really needed. And I've done that a few times. And we have to be brave to try to create things, and then you don't know. And this group started as Women at the Grave, and Donna started with this beautiful discussion about post-Easter and resurrection and women at the grave. And then we morphed into Women Who Witness. And then our numbers started to get smaller, and then we'd say, what can we do about these trucks? And then I would say, I know, let's all go stand around the trucks and we will bear witness. And then Dominique Atchison from the mayor's office says, no, don't do that. We can't do that, right, Dominique? And she says, and you'll kind of look like you're protesting people who are dying, right? And we had these conversations that were so woven with like how we felt and the despair and what can we do, and then how we felt and what can we do. And Donna, that is the kind of ministry that you've taught us how to do. And at one point you said, oh, Sherry, maybe you could, kind of lead this group. And then I would lead, and then Donna would lead in her beautiful way of then I'd get a text, oh, I can't be there today, Sherry. Why don't you go ahead? And this nurturing, this teaching. And this group is not meeting anymore right now, but what Donna has taught all of us as leaders and ministers in ministry is that you meet the moment when it's needed, and then when it's not needed, you step back. And if the Holy Spirit is needed again, those embers of that are still there. I still have that email list. We still have the conversations that we held dear. And so thank you, Donna, for making this beautiful space for women to speak about grief and death and dying and despair, and also knowing that we could hold all of it, support each other, and love each other. Thank you so much.
So now, from Judson Church itself, we thought, what can we do? What can we do? We can't do proclamations. We can't just do these videos. What can we do to honor Donna? And given the kind of lesson that she taught us, we could start a special fund of money to honor her and call it the Open Access and Innovation Fund in her honor. And then we could, yes, we could in fact keep the money for Judson's Open Access and Innovation Fund. And she said, okay, yeah, that's good, do it, do it. So less than a month ago, the board sent out a notice to the congregation saying, if anybody wants to give to this fund, Open Access and Invitation, you're welcome to do it. So at first a few people did, and then more people did, and how much do we have as of yesterday? Do you have the actual number, Grace? Yes, please give it to me. And let's see what it says. The envelope, please. Open Access and Innovation Fund. Of course, it's well sealed, but here we go. And it says 56 people, 56, a lot of people, gave extra money, and right now, $45,150. So thank you. And this is a gift for Donna, from Donna, for Judson, to Judson, and we are very grateful. But then there are other gifts that are a little more ones that she gets to keep. And one of them is Zach and Valerie are going to present something. Is this happening, Grace? Yes? Where is Zach? There he is, from the staff for Donna. Okay, that is Zach, everybody, who is our video master of many things.
Well, you've heard a lot about Donna's little slips of paper. And most of us, when we first met her, she would always have some form of basket that she would carry this stuff around in all day. And I remember early on, she had one so often I Googled it. And you have these very early forms of technology, like stone tools and violent weapons like spears. But I learned that a basket was the first form of technology for gatherers and nurturers. And it really connected a lot of dots for me with Donna. And so the staff got together and put a lot of special things in a special basket. And thank you, Donna.
Okay, let me come back. You want to share it?
Yeah, and
share some of it.
Yes, and that was the staff and now the congregation. Holly Bean was in charge of the search committee that got Donna to us and is now in charge of the transition committee that is helping to celebrate Donna's time with us. So Holly, I understand you also have something to say and give.
This thing off. So many good things being said about you, Donna, this weekend and before, and will be said later. And I hope that they will lodge themselves in your memory and live there, reminding you of the richness and power of your ministry at Judson. But we all know that time has a way of making even wonderful memories fade. So we have a gift to help you with that. This is a keepsake box. Its contents are to remind you, keep it flat. Here, you can put it right here. The contents are to remind you, should you ever start to forget, that your ministry at Judson has left a legacy of powerful pastoral care, creative public ministry, and unwavering witness for justice. This collection of cards, letters, and artwork represents not only some of those who have been touched and changed by your presence at Judson, and we hope you will use the box to store other appreciations that may come your way. Dan Funderburg designed the paper. The screen printing and box building was done by David DeMarschi, who you don't know, but you should. The production team working on behalf of the Judson community, and please stand these two wonderful women, were Kay Castle, Irene Titchener, and myself. And so a little advice. Take it slow. There's a lot of love in there. Enjoy. In addition, because Dan did such a wonderful job on this design, we have for you and Warren, Dan agreed to make posters of this design. And so we have a poster of this for you, and we will make other posters available for sale and raise a little more money for Judson.
Beautiful. They're beautiful.
So this is the poster.
Oh my goodness, look at that. Oh, Dan, let's look at that.
So this is the poster. And that's all the documentation that printers do. And it's a signed limited edition, and we hope you will take it as a good reminder of all your wonderful work here. We also have something for Warren, and you can stand here if you like while we do this. So Warren, you set the bar impossibly high for clergy spouses. You have not only been very present and engaged with the Judson community, but you have been willing to share your gifts as an historian and a teacher, and have chosen wisely the occasions that call for that. You have been careful and respectful about your role during all the ups and downs of life at Judson, and all the while observing your own religious tradition and your own demanding career as a writer and a professor. Extraordinary. Your support for Donna's ministry clearly is a labor of love, and we at Judson are deeply grateful. So we have a gift for you that is really only a token of the many ways, whether erudite or commonplace, that you have enhanced our life together. We need a closer table here. It has to do with Grace House hospitality and the meals that you and Donna have prepared, and sometimes you prepared by yourself, have all been memorable. Eating good food together is so central to all that we do as a church, feeding both the body and the spirit. So here is a little something to remind you of how much we appreciate not only your fabulous work in the kitchen, but all that you've contributed to Judson over the past 15 years, excuse me. 25. It's been a long day. Yeah, you can reach it out. It's just a little something. You have to look at the front.
Oh, wow.
So now, if you would like to respond, I'll put this aside for you if you guys have something to say.
So, you've heard from politicians, from preachers, from lawyers, and now you get a professor. I feel bad for you. And I gather there's a little bit of concern that I tend to go on. So I don't know where that could possibly have come from. But I am going to try to be brief here. Over the last 15 years, I have had the extraordinary pleasure of having a ringside seat at what I think of, and I think Donna does as well, the pastorate of a lifetime. If you doubt the lifetime part, listen to this. Donna's first solo pastorate was in Amherst, Massachusetts. It was 3 years long. She was then director of the Urban Academy in Chicago, and we spent 4 years there. She came back to the Northeast and was pastor of the First Congregational Church at Riverhead for 6 years, then to to be associate conference pastor in the western area of Massachusetts for 7 years, Coral Gables, Florida, at the Coral Gables Congregational Church for 4 years, Judson Memorial Church, 15 years. Once she got here, she realized that this was the pastorate of a lifetime. Even though she used to tell me sometimes when she got up in the morning, she literally didn't know what she was going to do next because the job was so challenging and the city was big and the need was great and the congregation was extraordinary. So for me and for us, but for me, we've had the chance to be part of a first-rate downtown show, having a really good run. And I want to talk about you all for a minute. I want to make sure that you know what you have done to make it that. Donna talks and other people have talked about how deep the Judson bench is. Layers and layers and even more layers of lay leadership ready to step up and take responsibility. And I know it's been mentioned before, but I have to talk about it personally. Layers and layers of people to stand up for the immigrants that were being cast out, detained, threatened, and deported. And by the way, this is all during the Obama years. So all of you who accompanied Jean Montreville and Joe and May Chen and our own Ravi Ragbir right here in the front row, and you all helped bring Ravi and Jean back from detention in Miami. And I will never forget the day that we saw Jean Montreville come back from detention in Miami. I will never forget Ravi coming back from Miami after Donna had been there and was able to visit with both Ravi and Jean in the Crone Detention Center. A horrible place. Somehow, you held the space during the Trump years and grew New Sanctuary to the point that it had over 3,000 volunteers throughout the city and helped thousands of immigrants slow down the deportation machine. And then when you weren't doing that, you helped flip the New York State Senate, which was an incredible achievement that people have been wanting to have happen for a decade. And you are still part of a campaign to bring Jean Montreville back to his family, this congregation, and his adopted country. And that may still happen. And it's getting closer, we think. Can you imagine Jean Montreville walking into this space? And you have all noticed, I'm sure, that the Trump folks have not gone away and are now engaged in what I think, it's not up to me, other people know it first, a highly coordinated campaign to destroy American democracy at the state level. You have still got work to do. It didn't end when we got rid of Trump. It's still there. And then the music. My goodness, the music. Every Sunday, a concert, a Broadway tune. I try to explain Judson to other people, and I always start with the fact that there's always a Broadway piece at Judson. And it was a musical education for me, from Michael Conley to Toby Twining to Henko. And again, to the amazing lay people. What a phenomenally deep musical bench you have. I started listing people, and then I realized I was just running down the list of people who sang last night on the Zoom show. And if you haven't had a chance to see it, please do. Wonderfully curated, and shows again what an extraordinary bench there is here. And you welcomed me into your midst. And for that, I will always be grateful. And I'm going to enjoy going through that box with Donna as well, as I have loved listening to you all talk about the last 15 years. And most of all, I thank the love of my life. We will celebrate 39 years of marriage in a few weeks. For bringing me to New York for a 15-year run of a really good show. And as you Judsonites know better than most folks, the show will go on. We'll be in the audience, though, cheering you all on. Thank you so much for what you've given to both of us.
I think it's close to over. Everybody feeling good about that? Suresh, one of our members, was chatting me up yesterday at the party in the street, and I said, when just a gush of emotion, I said, Suresh, this has been the best congregation I've ever had or could imagine having, the pastorate of a lifetime. And Suresh bounced right back and said, oh, you just say that to all the congregations? Well, I don't. I love you. Thank you. Bye.
Oh, my dear.
Too much.
Too much. I
Just
know.
too much.
But it's over.
It's over.
So accept it. It's over.
It's you, it's us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Too much. Oh, benedictions.
So, I'm called up for a part I'm sure you want. This is a benediction. But the way Grace has this worded, she says, Valerie, ask the congregation to join in my benediction for Donna and Warren. So those of you who can, I'm about to pray. And that's why I want them to stay. And I want you to join me in the prayer. Those that pray. I want you to join me as we send energy. And those who are still with us on Zoom, I want you to send energy to Reverend Dr. Donna Schaper and Professor Warren Goldstein. Okay? So won't you join me now? Mother, Father, everything, God, Lord, you've been with us the whole time that she's been here. Actually, you've been in this church with us for the church for over 130-something years. But right now, we're looking at the last 15. So we want to thank you, God, for letting this woman be here, making a decision to come here, and staying for 15 years. And we thank you, God, for being in the midst of her time with us, with all the ups, the downs, the whatever, as one of my favorite Psalms says in Psalm 23, in the NRSV version, yea, though when I will go through dark valleys. God, you've been with us through the dark valleys and all of the times here. So right now, we're asking you, and we believe in you, as my mother would say, you promise to be with us. So I'm asking you, God, to promise to continue to be with Donna and Warren, and continue your promise to be with Judson Memorial Church. We trust you with that, God. We believe you with that, God. And in your son's name and in the name of love, we just say thank you and we trust you. Amen.
We ask you as we leave to watch the Judson Choir sing the song, and which we will share in our hearts, of Blessed Be the Tie That Binds. So, and when this is over, we go off and continue the ministry in the world.
Blessed be the tie that binds our hearts in God-given love, the fellowship of kindred minds is like to that above. We share each other's woes, your burdens there, and often for each other flows the sympathizing tear. When we are sundered apart, it gives us inward pain, but we shall still be joined in heart and hope to meet again.
Thank you all, and especially thank Donna and Warren.